you with more guns and gunpowder. Go out there, fight your battles. In return, you will have to come back and pay us. And the payment was the victims of war. You see, at this point, I call my own ancestors greedy and naive because they believe the strangers over their own people. Hunger for power drove them, and they gave victims of wars out for the guns and gunpowder. In business, we call something barter trade. I give you something of value for something of value back. So when the people are saying that we sold each other, there is some truth in that. When they gave the victims of wars out for the guns and gunpowder, what do you think they were doing? It was a trade between them. There was an understanding. And so that was what constituted the trade. So for a couple of decades, our ancestors were the ones handing over the victims of wars in this particular territory. You travel to the Ashanti Kingdom, they are great today because of all this stuff. They fought with the Bono people, the Dentra people, the Gonjas, and when they had their war victims, they would trade them for more guns and gunpowder. The Fantis were also taking portion of the land, the others were also doing same. It went on like that for a couple of decades. But now demand has started growing up gradually to the highest peak. The Dutch, the Danish, the Spanish, the British, the French, all of them came here for the same thing that the Portuguese were exporting. They had to fight each other. For nearly 130 years, they've been fighting. The British then took over in the year 1651. They introduced raiding, kidnapping, ambushing, burning homes, forcing families into chains and shackles. Children, pregnant women were forced into the chains and were made to walk for so many miles. We have here a historian called Akosia Adomapebi, professor of the University of Ghana, Legon. In her book entitled The History of Indigenous Slavery in Ghana from the 15th century to the 19th century, she made us aware many slave markets were used all along the west coast of Africa. From Benin all the way to Senegal, Gold Coast Ghana had about 63 slave markets. We have Salaga, Sampa, Janani, Ketekrache, Bono Manso, Techiman, Picoro, Assin Manso, the dungeon at Cape Coast, Elmina, Fort Amsterdam, Fort William, Senyabreku, Apam, all the way to the Christiansborg Castle in Osu, Accra, just to mention a few, were all used. There was this British historian, his name W. E. Ward, who traveled around that same era. He kept a travel journal entitled The Short History of Gold Coast. In that book, he stated many slave markets were used. They were all functional. Among them, Gold Coast. Right here, we have two slave markets that played a historical role. We have Assin Manso and that of the Salaga slave market. The distance between these two slave markets is over 400 miles, a journey of over 653 kilometers. Our ancestors in the chains and shackles, being children, pregnant women, included with the men, they walked from there to get here. But then you see, not all our ancestors who came through here or to the castles were all from Gold Coast. Some were captured from Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger. Today, walking from Niger to this land, you will never survive. Our ancestors did it. Look, it's a journey of over 1,100 miles. And they walked from there to get here. On the way, they were camped at Salaga, giving food. The food wasn't because they were hungry. They had to feed them because they were looking weak and they can't continue the journey on that. So they gave them food to strengthen them. They then went through the Mole National Park, a nature reserve full of wild animals. In order for the ancestors to walk freely through the park, they had to sacrifice some of our ancestors as bait. The weaker ones were picked and they walked them for a couple of meters. Then had them tied to trees. They gave them multiple whips around them. They applied, attracted the wild animals. As they were feeding on them, they moved the rest out of the park. They succeeded, but lives were lost. They then met a river on their way. So huge and fast flowing, the Pra River was so dangerous. The ancestors had to try their best to cross it, but they were in chains. How do you expect them to swim? Many of them got drowned there, and they were buried just at the bank of the river, and they continued their journey. The women, they went through hell. Look, these people never considered us humans, but they were raping our women. Aside that, they were subjected to multiple treatments. The stone treatment and the metal mass treatment were put on them, or they inflicted them with all these pains because they were crying. The people were crying not because they were hungry or anything like that, but then whenever they looked into the eyes of their siblings, they felt heartbroken. So they cried. These people, the captives, thought our ancestors were crying to give away their locations for neighboring communities to come to their aid, so they shut them up. In trying to shut them up, they forced stones into their mouth and then had it tied around their necks. If they wouldn't use that, they gathered the leaves in there and cover it up with a metal mask. That way you get to shed tears, but then nobody hears your voice. They managed to get here. They arrived hungry, dirty, skinny, and very, very tired. At this point, they were given food, and it wasn't because they were hungry. This time, they've grown too skinny. No buyer wants such a person, so they gave them the food. As they were feeding them, they looked at the men. All those men with their hairs and beards bushy were all being shaved off with broken bottles, and sometimes they used sharpened knives. After all that, they have to determine how old they were. So they went into the chains. They used the particular tool called speculum oris. They force it in there, and then they turn it. The wider the mouth, the more exposed their teeth, so they can count it to get to know how old you are. Group them according to various age groups before taking them down to the river for their bath. The river is down there, about 5 minutes or 6 minutes from here. Before we take the walk, in here we have 3 different graves. There we have the ancestral graveyard. The remains of Madam Crystal from Kingston, Jamaica, Samuel Carson from New York City, United States, and the last one was brought back from Barbados by the Prime Minister of Barbados in 2019. 1998, we celebrated the very first ever Emancipation Day right here on this land. It saw the return of some remains from Jamaica and the United States. The Prime Minister back then in Jamaica, together with others from the United States of America, decided to bring some remains back. So Crystal was actually a captive from this land, taken all the way to Jamaica. They got there and she wouldn't eat anything. Embarking on a hunger strike, she was caught in the act. They decided to force her to eat something. So they used the chisel and hammer method. Her jaws were closed, so they knocked them out. They pulled the teeth out and they placed the funnel there, dish the food into the funnel with water, they push it down the tummy. That way she survived and they will not lose their money. But you know what? I have some African women here. I don't want to speak the truth, but then I must tell you the truth. Look, for some reason they say African women are stubborn. Are you stubborn?
Hey.
I don't think we are stubborn. It's just that we know what we want. And once we make decisions, that's it. Nobody can change our mind. You can't convince us to do otherwise. And we all know. When she decided to take this course, she has already made a judgment, like a strong point. I'm never going to change my plans. Whenever she's caught in the act, starving herself to death, they'll have to force her to eat something. So they use the chisel and hammer method. The jaws were closed, so they knocked the teeth out. With the chisel and hammer, they place the funnel through and they dish the food into the funnel. With water, they push it down the throat. That way she stayed alive for them not to lose their money. She was so strong. Whenever she's forced to eat, she waits quietly after they have all left. Their fingers go straight into the throat and she threw everything up. She continued with that and died in the process. Her dying wish was to be brought back to the motherland. Centuries of preserving the remains, they flew it back together with the remains of Samuel Carson. Samuel was one of the very first group of African Americans to serve in the U.S. Navy. He died and wasn't given a befitting burial. You see, he was born a slave. On a plantation, he escaped, and that earned him the name the Runaway. Joined the U.S. Navy, fought during the Mexican-American War in the year 1846. Unfortunately, he didn't survive it. He was then buried on the Navy yard. His great-grandnephew, Sonny Abubadika Carson, decided to bring the remains of his great-grand-uncle in 1998. They flew the remains back. They got to the airport at Accra, picked on a bus. On their way to the Cape Coast Castle, they got to the town called Abanzi. The road was blocked by the number of youths who came there to welcome them. They told the leaders none of these ancestors left here on buses. They were never in an airplane. If you had to bring them back, you should have shipped them the same way they were shipped out. So then, they provided them with a boat. They told the leaders, move them on this boat across the Atlantic to the castle. So they took them on the same channel. They arrived at the Cape Coast Castle and they met this door called Door of No Return. Which simply means when you walk through that door, you are never coming back home. The ancestors who left through that door, they only looked back, which signified they will come and we will be back home. But they never survived to see this day. They survived and we are here to see it for them. We are witnessing these days because they granted us these opportunities. Have you asked yourself why you are not in Paris today and you are here in Africa? What are we doing here? Many people confuse themselves. They say we are on a vacation, but then I try to correct them. It's a pilgrimage, not a vacation. You are now returning back to your homeland. You never knew this place. Your ancestors were taken away. The door was shut on them. But now, in 1998, when they got the two of them to the back of the door, The youth made sure to open that same door. They forced it open, and they created a new name for the door as a door of return, meaning time has come for us to start coming back home. For the past 26 years, this year is going to be 27 years since they were buried there. And their spirits are now finding peace. 2019, the year of return, that's exactly 400 years of African resiliency. 1619 in US Virginia to 2019, we celebrated it as the year of return, welcoming all Africans across the globe to this land. Their friends were with them, and then when they came, the Prime Minister of Barbados came with remains of her own ancestors. From Barbados, they excavated them from a mass graveyard, flew them to this land to be buried for their souls to find peace and rest. 11th of November 2019 was where we had the third grave right there. Look, if you are here and you have ashes of your relatives, either in a neck piece or you have a container that contains the ashes, we allow you to go in there and then you sprinkle them all around to put their spirit back to the soil of Africa and allow them a peaceful place to rest. That's why we created this particular country. There we have the portrait of the freedom fighters. For these people, you know most of them. We call them the emancipators, civil rights activists, and then freedom fighters, because without them, some of us will not be standing here. We never know what is called civil rights, and then even those things. They sacrificed their lives for us to be able to enjoy this peace. From here, we are taking the 5 or 6 minute walk to the river where they actually had their bath. Please come with me. As a secret motion sensors. Today, you and I, immediately we have an apartment, we want to secure the territories. So either we put CCTV cameras on the door or the entrance, or we put that device called Ring so that it can keep us secure. We can record several things that goes on around that particular premises. The ancestors were also using this plant as a way to tell how close the captors were getting to them. Whenever they come and the plant is closed, it indicates somebody has been here. They know they've been here, and they can use that to track you down, because the more you move away, the more it closes and it leads the people to that direction. Many people decided to use different other ways to fight. The caves are here in Ghana to tell us the stories. The ancestral caves in Shai Osudoku Mountain, one in Kwewu, and also when you go to the northern territories of Gold Coast. There are so many of these places there to tell us the stories. Today we have this here to tell the story. We are now heading into the rainy season. In the dry season, they usually dry.
Why did you not before opening it?
So we are walking into a sacred space. So we believe the spirits of the ancestors are still around here. So in order to walk into somebody's home, I need to knock, announcing our presence. So this is how the homes of our ancestors now, their spirits are here with us. So I can't just go barging into their space. I have to announce our presence to be able to walk through. So whatever they are doing in the spiritual world, they can hold on for us to use the space, and then they can continue with their whatever they were doing. And that's why I had to knock on the door. All right, so please.
ancestors wore to get washed before being sold into slavery.
So we are currently here at the ancestral river, where the ancestors had their last ever bath. We have here two rivers. One river known as Donkonsu, translates into English as the Slaves River, and the other one is called the Ochi River, meaning something which can grab you or wash you away. Our ancestors were not allowed to go to the Ochi. Currently, we are in a dry season, and so the river is not flowing that much. Usually, in the dry season, it dries off, and then in the rainy season, it comes all the way up high, about 12 feet up, and then fast flowing. The ancestors were not allowed to go to the far end of the river. That part of the river is what we call the Ochi River, meaning something which can grab you or wash you away. They restricted them from going there, thinking when they go there, they will get washed away and they will lose everything that they have labored for. So they kept them on this side. Right here, they were in the chains and shackles, with round metal balls around their ankles. They kept them there. This river doesn't flow very fast, so they were in there, trying to bathe themselves with shackled hands. They couldn't do it to themselves, so they were helping each other. If I help you clean, you help somebody else clean. Repeat that until everyone got cleansed, and they saw them doing that. They thought they were trying to free themselves to escape, so they got them separated. Once separated, they cut the bamboos. With the leaves of these bamboos, as itchy and sharp as they were, they used it as a form of brush on them. Washing them with it gave them bruises and scrapes all over their bodies. After they got bruised, they pulled them out, line them up here, allow them to get dry. After they got dry, they applied shea butter or palm kernel oil on their skins to make them look presentable and attractive for the buyers to come here to pick. Those buyers who came from the various castles to this place to purchase, they were with a long-handled tools. So they will leave those branding tools in the fire, go out there to select whoever they want to select. After selection, they will pay for them and chain them to the trees before lifting the metals from the fire and burning their skins with it, leaving the marks on them to tell the public that they are now properties. Those who were purchased were taken on a walk all the way to the Cape Coast Castle, Elmina Castle, That's a journey of about 40 kilometers from here. The ones who were left in the chains were left in the, they couldn't even do anything. So then they had them all killed because they considered them useless commodities. They killed all of them and dumped them all around, left them here to rot. Nature had the place covered. We call the place the bamboo slave dumping site. Others call it the bamboo slave cemetery. I don't like the word cemetery because they were not properly buried. I'm not going to take you down this way because this is the last part. But then we will focus on this particular one. We are going to the first bath of return. Our ancestors had their last bath here, and we are here to represent them, wash this up. Getting rid of the epigenetics, the generational traumas, the generational stress, whatever it is that they left on us. We are getting rid of them today. So that's river, or this part we call it the Sign Kofa birthright healing bath. Back to your roots, birthright healing bath is what we call it. So when we get down there, you find a comfortable space. We go to the flowing part where you can put your hands in the rub it on your hands, sprinkle the water on your body, and then whatever it is that you feel like sharing with the spirit of your ancestors and the man up there, you talk to them. So please come with me. Usually, you don't get to stand here. This is the entire river. It rises to your level and it flows this way. So the ancestors were not allowed here. They were only kept there so that they can bathe themselves and then clean and they will take them out. But then we get a chance to come here because the river is drying up. Other times it comes up this way, about 3 feet up, and we all stand in it and do whatever we want to do. So without wasting much time, I'll allow you to get close to the water. Put your hands in. And then you sprinkle it on your body. Then you share whatever it is that you feel like sharing with your ancestors and the mother. You pray, thanking them for their sacrifices, for their survival, for you to be here. So that's what we do here. So please, let us put all the phones in the bag and focus on this moment. Thank you. So this is the wall called the Memorial Wall of Return, built in the year 2007 as part of a project called the Joseph Project. All on this wall, all the names were written by diasporan Africans who paid us a visit. Since 2007, they've been writing on it, but whenever it's full, they paint all over it to create a different space for others to also write on. So these are the names of the people who wrote in the year 2023 and 2024. Before the end of 2024, this wall was already full. Wow. We are yet to paint all over it to create a different layer. But then very soon, we're going to find a different way. We are trying to create a hybrid wall. We keep this and then a digital wall there, so that when you write on it, you can show it to the wall. Everyone can go onto the internet and see it and then you get it. So this will bring us to the end of the talk, and I would like to say thank you very much.
Thank you.